let's talk about the upcoming trade deadline and some moves that we would like to see. So we have each selected a few trades that we would like to see happen. The number that we had set was 3, but I've got a couple more. You've got a couple more. So we'll just go until it feels right to stop. And we'll talk about some players that we might want to see moved. And we have actually thought of compensation, draft picks, and different players that might be traded for these players. So if you would like to kick us off with your first trade, I would like to hear it.
Man, I was hoping you were going to take it, but it does make sense. I have more as of right now, pre-planned than you. But I'll go ahead and I'll start off with probably, a safe one, maybe. Because there's been some fuel around this for going back to last offseason and last trade deadline. But, or not a couple of years ago. But I am thinking a DeAndre Hopkins trade to the Chiefs for a third-round pick would be a adequate compensation for the team, notably because the Chiefs don't just have their own third-round pick, they have the Titans' third-round pick. So the Titans go ahead and they get that back, and the Titans are going to have a good draft pick this year. It's basically predetermined with how they've been playing. And the Chiefs get DeAndre Hopkins, who has been, linked with the Chiefs in those trade talks of the past. And then the Chiefs get a bona fide weapon because they've lost all of their weapons. And Sky Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster,
who's injured,
aren't really going to crack it for the rest of the year.
Yeah. I think that based on trades we've seen in the past, a third is a bit of an, I don't want to say overcompensation, but I feel like a third is a lot to give up for a veteran receiver when we see some of the other guys that are getting traded around. I think Devontae is at a better, he's playing better than D-Hop is right now. Situation, all of that, of course. But I think Devontae is better and he was traded for less than that. But I also see the Titans being like, nah, you're the Chiefs. You got to give us more because we're giving you the golden ticket to solve your problems.
I'm also very happy that you brought that up because I did have a rebuttal to it. And the third round pick, yes, it's a little bit expensive. The Chiefs are in a rut for the position, so the need is there. And then also in this third round pick scenario where they are getting their own pick back instead of the Chiefs, which would be a whole round difference at that point, I have the Titans taking some of the cap hit for DeAndre Hopkins, which makes the deal work in the Chiefs' favor, because at the moment the Chiefs only have, I believe, around $5 million in cap space. So they can't afford the D-Hop contract, hence the premium draft position to get them there for this year and go ahead and cover the cost on the Titan side.
All right. That makes sense. I'll go with my first one. I have Justin Fields getting traded to the Giants. And that is I just have a 2026 fourth-round pick. The reason that it's so low and so cheap for the Giants in a future fourth is because they would have to extend Justin Fields or just use him for the rest of this season. His contract expires at the end of this year, so it would basically be giving up, ultimately, some pretty high capital in order to basically get a premium waiver position on him, where you get to negotiate with him for 6 months before any other team does. And I think it would be nice to see Fields in a place with, I don't know if I'd say better receivers, but he'd be sent to another offense that's kind of starved for talent. But at least it's Brian Daboll. There's a bona fide good coach there that has had success developing quarterbacks in the past with Josh Allen. And it would be nice to see somebody not named Daniel Jones in that Giants offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, bare minimum, this gives Daniel Jones competition, right? In the room, you now have to try harder to keep your starting job, and you're not pigeonholed to Daniel Jones as much because now you have a young backup who is affordable and you could extend for affordable money because it's basically a prove-it deal, and you're not trapped. So I would honestly, as much as I would hate Justin Fields being on the move to yet another organization that hasn't performed too great as of late, it is what it is.
Neighbors is there. There's some.
Yeah.
I think Neighbors would probably be the best receiver that he's played with in his career.
Yeah, there's hope for the future
So
there. It would
NFL
just
career,
not be
necessarily
something this
college.
week.
He played at Ohio State.
True. Good clarification there.
Yeah. All right, your next one, and then my next one's real fun. I'm excited for this one.
Okay. All right, so I went ahead and, I'm thinking of a couple of Browns players that could, exit the building. But I'm also not thinking of such big names that it's going to be copious amounts of draft compensation. And while I could see copious amounts of draft compensation going in favor of a Myles Garrett, I don't feel like the Browns are going to budge on Myles Garrett unless it's like
3 firsts.
the rapist
or something.
Type of compensation. And so I leaned a little safer and I looked towards a different position group. And that was Greg Newsome II, who is next season going to be playing on a 5th-year option. And I have him being traded to the Commanders for a 2025 third-round pick and it's not compensatory. What's the term?
Pick swap?
No, if it's weighing on something.
Oh, a condition.
A conditional 5th-round pick as well for playing time, basically. So
Okay.
This is a defense that is starved for the DB talent there. You kind of made a good point of, maybe not last episode, but a couple episodes ago, of Mike Samerstill is a standout player on that team. And it's because there's really no one else around him, and he's a rookie. So you go ahead and you add someone who is they're in their 4th year, and they've proven that they are good in man coverage. They've proven that they are a decent coverage player. Maybe not so far this year, but the Browns have really regressed defensively this year. So take, the past 3 years of tape into consideration, more than this year's tape. And you go ahead and you really bolster the weakest part of your team as the Commanders, who are in contention to go ahead and be the top of their division, make it to the playoffs. They want to be able to survive in the playoffs. So I have this trade going through for the 3rd-round pick with the conditional 5th-round pick.
So you like your 3rd-round pick trades, evidently.
I do. It seems.
I like my 4th-round pick trades. So I have, and this one will never happen, not because it's not a good trade, but because of who I have this player going to and their refusal to make any moves. I don't know if I've hinted at that enough, but I have the Falcons trading Tyler Algier to the Cowboys for a 2025 4th-round pick. And I think that would solve a lot of problems. Bijan is really coming into his own, and Tyler Algier is still on a cheap rookie deal. So there's not really I don't think the Falcons really have a reason to give him up, but he was a 5th-round pick, and turning a 5th-round pick into a 4th-round pick is always nice. And I think it's pretty evident that he would probably want to test free agency over re-signing for a cheap deal, just because he knows that he could be RB1 on a couple of teams if they have a weaker running back room. Mm-hmm. So giving him to somebody like the Cowboys, who has a really struggling in the run game, with Zeke kind of being their, I guess, top dog. I think it would be a perfect fit for them, and it would give Algier a place to kind of do what Cowboys fans wanted Tony Pollard to do, which is start. And then it didn't work for Tony Pollard, but maybe it works for Algier. And if it does, you've got him for a year and a half, and then you can think about extending him or letting him at free agency, and it would give you a little bit more offensive flexibility.
Yeah, you stated that the Falcons don't really have a good reason to move him, and I'll raise you one good reason, and it's that FTP Anderson is the one calling the shots right now, and he really does not like seeing Tyler Algier get these carries over Bijan Robinson. So, there's some clarification for the viewer on why did this happen. That's why.
Well, it's less that, because Bijan's been getting more touches recently. He was extremely efficient this game, and I think they're moving towards just having a Bijan only backfield. So I think they've kind of got a commodity that they don't need, where if they could turn it into it could even be like a 3rd-round pick. Honestly, I could see the Cowboys giving up that much for him, just because the contract is so kind. But yeah, I think the Falcons don't need him, they could do with the draft capital just to kind of protect their future. They're in somewhat of a win now mode, but also in a future winning mode. So they're clearly gearing up for both. And I think that's a move that just kind of makes sense to me, even though that's not something that's been talked about at all. And Algier is not a name that has come up in any trade rumors that I've seen, at least. But if you want to get into your third trade.
All right. You called me out. I've got too many third-round picks being moved for these players. I get it. So I'll go ahead and I'll give you a trade that doesn't include a third-round pick being moved. And this is maybe a little bit extra evident after last night's game. Or not last night's, but some primetime game that's happened recently. And this is Mike Williams being traded. And is this your last one as well? Are you mad at me?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wonder if we have the same landing spot.
That would be crazy. I doubt it.
Okay. I have Mike Williams going to the Steelers, the team that they just played. Russ has clearly been shown to be the guy that loves to throw these balls straight up and have it be contested. And guess what Mike Williams is really great for? And you could get at very cheap compensation, as he's an older veteran, at the cost of just a 2025 sixth-round pick to bolster the offense of the Steelers as they're sitting at 5-2 and are looking to do that for this playoff run. I have that trade going through to give Russ more weapons.
Yeah, so you've got Mike Williams. I don't know if you could tell by my facial expression and by me saying that I had a Mike Williams trade, but I also have a Mike Williams trade. His name has been one that's been floated since the Devontae trade, and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't trade him with Devontae to the Raiders, because I feel like that would have made more sense. Swap receivers and, give up a pick. I have him going to the Patriots, though, who have a bit of a receiver issue, in exchange for a 2026 sixth-round pick. So 1 year later, his contract is very friendly. I don't think Aaron Rodgers loves him. He threw him under the bus for the Hail Mary attempt that got picked. So I don't think there's any love lost, and I don't think the Patriots would have to give up that much. He would give Drake May a bit of a more reliable option. The most reliable option he has right now was Kendrick Bourne until he dropped that pass over the middle that hit him in the hands. Now it's Demario Douglas, who was thrown up on the sideline. Well, not actually, but he had food poisoning, so he wasn't playing in London. But yeah, Jalen Polk, best hands in the league, dropping every pass. It's not a great look. So you need to bring in somebody that can catch, and I think that Mike Williams might be able to do that for you.
And with that brings us each to our last trades that we have. And, I like this balance that we've had. I did a Chiefs, Commanders, Steelers. You got the Giants, the Cowboys, the Patriots. We really diversified who's getting who in this trade so far. But I'm pretty sure we both have the same landing spot for these players that are coming up here. And that would be the Detroit Lions, if I'm correct in assuming. And we've got some different players here because I have the Lions doing the, safer cap or, draft position swap here. And that would be acquiring Darius Smith. This is another Browns player I have moving at the deadline who isn't one of those bigger names that would cost a lot. Being traded to the Lions for a 2025 fourth-round pick. Once again, not a third-round pick. Don't dog me for it. And this is the safer option. It's definitely been shown that, Brad Holmes loves his picks, and I don't see him giving up multiple late-round picks for somebody. I would then opt for the fourth only, not like a fifth and a sixth or a fifth and a future or anything. Just straight up for the fourth to get Darius Smith. He's played in the division a lot. And, why not have this little, come back to the NFC North little play here. But, I think that yours is arguably the much more exciting one. This is definitely
much more exciting.
This is just the more,
realistic.
Let's be friendly and not overhype anything. Let's not try to, hype it up, and let's keep it calm, cool, collected, so that way when something cooler happens, I can be really excited. But for now, if I got Za'Darius, I'd be happy.
Yeah, so I think Darius Smith is a very realistic option for the Cowboys and Cowboys. Wow, I am just out of it today. For the Lions, and I think cap wise, trade comp wise, And just like need wise for the Lions, it's a very realistic option, and it's much less exciting though than Max Crosby heading back to Michigan to go play for the Detroit Lions. I'm going to need your help with the compensation on this, because I actually didn't look at his contract at all, so I don't know how long he would be there, or like how long his current contract is. It is actually only through 2026.
I was gonna say, I know that it's he got a big extension, but it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so he wouldn't be there for too long. I feel like he seems pretty checked out of the Raiders stuff, and I can't say I blame him.
Yeah.
But I have him going for a 2025 first and 2026 third. And I feel like that's light compensation, and that's something you would be okay with giving up, but I don't think the Raiders would accept it unless he's demanding out.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, he has been kind of in that boat of Myles Garrett, of like, these are players that are going to retire at this spot. Their teams just suck, and you don't want them to retire at those spots. You want them to kind of go above and beyond and play with better teams, get to the playoffs, get better moments. And if Max Crosby continues this like checked out, like committed, his mind is elsewhere. You know, he's thinking about other teams he could be playing on. Then yeah, this
he's thinking about smoking woods with Dan Campbell. that's all that's on his mind.
He's thinking about shotgunning some beers with with Dan Campbell in the locker room, and he's sitting there sad in the locker room getting interviewed about it. But I think realistically, the Raiders are just going to force him to be there unless he says, I don't want to be here. And so if it's more of that situation of like, no, he's staying with us no matter what, even you better make a crazy offer, then it would be like, okay, we need to give him 2 firsts. But I think the realistic output for if he does move would be closer to what you had than like him not moving at all because his cost is too high.
Yeah, I'll bump it up to a 2026 second round pick from a third round pick because the Lions are set up for success in the future. So I don't think they're going to be like bad. So I think it'll be probably a pretty late second or late third. I'm assuming that if Max Crosby is getting traded, it's because he's telling the Raiders that he wants to get traded. I don't think they're shopping him around because they don't want him anymore. Yeah. So that is kind of the main disclaimer with this trade specifically is this is Max demanding his way out, or not demanding, but like requesting his way out, and them just kind of getting what they can for him. And it's, NFC to or AFC to NFC trade. So there's not any like, you're probably not going to play against him anytime soon. And if you do, it's going to be once. So there's not a ton of friction there. Whereas some of these trades, like Mike Williams to the Patriots, that's an interdivision trade. So I don't know. I think I now have it bumped up to a 25 first and 26 second. They may have to throw in a player as well, but I just don't know the Lions roster that well or the Raiders roster to know what they need outside of everything. And I've seen some like Hendon Hooker might get traded talks, and I just don't think that's realistic because I think he's the Lions' future plan at quarterback. So I don't know why they'd get rid of him. Yeah.
I think you're not going to trade your succession plan, and I think that the Raiders also don't need to trade for a player when the issue is the roster. Like they trade for a player and they have to deal with that player's contract and that player's renegotiation. Whereas if they just get a draft pick instead, then they work on expanding through the draft, and now they have a player for 4 years. It's just, it works out. It makes more sense in my eyes that way.
Yeah. And you also don't know what you're getting with Hendon Hooker. So I think that's the other reason the Raiders wouldn't be super into it is they don't know for sure that they're getting a good starter. They're giving stuff up for a chance at a possible starter. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. So, but yeah, that kind of rounds out this segment of the podcast of the trade block, as long as you don't have anything else to add. Let us know down in the comments some trades that you would like to see if you think that ours are super unrealistic, and then maybe fix the compensation on some of these for us. We're not experts. We don't know the inner workings of every single one of these teams. So if you know, if you have a little bit more insider information, you're a little bit more in tune with the teams that are that we mentioned, let us know, please, because we do appreciate that feedback. Thanks for watching this segment from the Franchise Tag Podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss the full episode coming out tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central. We've got even more in-depth analysis, hot takes, and football breakdowns coming your way. You don't want to miss it. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok, Spotify, and Twitter for clips, full episodes, and live tweeting during the games, among other things. We've got Franchise Tag Player of the Week that drops every Tuesday on our main Twitter, and then just some other throughout the week interactions from us on our individual Twitters. All of those are going to be down in the description below, so make sure to hit those. See you soon.